pass it over to Mr. Esler to present on EV.
Thank you. Thanks, Amanda. I'm going to share my screen. So Amanda and I put together a presentation for you all today. And I hope everyone has a chance to see this. This is a presentation. We presented the last 6 months to the Board of Supervisors a couple of times, but this is a good opportunity to kind of refresh on some of the county's initiatives and efforts in bringing in electric vehicles into our county fleet. We just did the welcome and introduction, which was great. We just want to talk a little bit about the impact of transportation and new technologies on the environment, being that this is Earth Day and we have some data to share with everybody. And depending on the level of knowledge, I think that everyone has, we wanted to see where the conversation is, like where we should focus the most time, whether we should talk more about, electric vehicles and those different models, or do we need to talk more about what the county is doing? So we wanted to have that approach as well. We talked about kind of having a couple of poll questions up and running, but I think this is a small enough group that we can do that, right, Amanda?
Agreed.
Okay. Okay. So before we start, is there any of these topic areas, the transportation and the impact of transportation on the environment, or electric vehicle, or county electric vehicle incorporation that you are the most interested in, so we can kind of focus the next 20 minutes or that we have? Is there any feedback on that from the group?
My only thought is, personally, I know a lot of us are a part of the green team. I imagine are at least somewhat familiar with EVs in general. I have an electric vehicle personally, so I would be a little more interested in hearing what the county, what's going on with the county specifically. But if anyone else does want the more EV basics and whatnot, that's definitely fine.
Thank you for that, Marco. And Nina just weighed in via chat. Thanks, Miss Nina. She also said she'd like to hear more about EVs in Coconino County.
Great. Well, we'll do all of those, and I think that's fairly easy to do. I just wanted to make sure that we kind of honed in, and I'll be more than happy to share some of the latest and greatest information on the county's effort. Transportation has significant impacts on the environment with the green gas emissions. There's been tremendous work done with the federal fuel efficiency standards that have had an impact on reducing the trend line overall for the entire transportation sector, which vehicles play the majority of that role. And I'm sharing here some data from the Department of Energy that they produce an annual report that shows what are the different sectors in the economy and the impact of the environment. And this is this chart on the left side of the screen here, and they project forward in the next 30 years, what that trend line is. And the blue line in the top part shows transportation as the #1 contributor and emitter. In 2018, because of the energy standards, electric power generation and transportation swapped those #1s, and that's primarily because of the coal power plants going offline. And this chart on the right side also is indicative of that storyline in greenhouse gas emissions with natural gas and coal swapping places in 2018 or around that time. The energy, as I mentioned earlier, the fuel efficiency standards have played a significant role in especially in the small and light truck areas of the auto market, by improving significantly the efficiency, and that will continue to be, even moving forward, a pretty big gain. And you can see that on this graph to the left with the slopes lines. In 2010, cars were getting about, in that year, like we're getting about like 22, 23 miles per gallon, and right now they are hitting that 30 gallon per mile, and they're expected to like increase. While there's some significant improvements in the kind of like the light out of fleet portion of transportation, the other part that is also significant, and these are big equipment, and they're like different categories like snow plows and transportation trucks that do freight. The energy efficiency on those in these classes is projected to improve some, but you can see that the trend lines are pretty, like, have a pretty small improvement overall. So again, just wanted to kind of set that stage initially. Then this other chart shows the different vehicle sales by class type, by fuel type. Gasoline was in around 2018 made up almost like 90% of the vehicle sales. And you can see with this green patch here moving forward, that's the battery electric car vehicle that are gaining traction, and that growth would I believe that growth would be even stronger, like in the future, and we will see a significant increase of those fuel type vehicles. So again, the vehicle sales number is this chart on the right of the screen that shows that we had like around 300,000 or so vehicles that were classified as electric vehicles, and that is projected to grow pretty significantly in the next period by like tripling and doubling within the next in the next decade. We also wanted to show some global sales number and the different markets. You can see that adoption rates along for each country is shown in this bar chart here in the top, with Norway having almost like 50% of their vehicle sales in 2018 be electric or electric type vehicles. And then this cutout window here shows that the top 3 markets for electric vehicles in 2018 were China, United States, and Norway, with China accounting for close to a little bit more than 1 million vehicles. We also wanted to like show that electric vehicles are here and like are here to stay in the long run, not just with the global numbers, but also the adoption rate for each of the 50 states in the United States, and California leads again the way, no surprise there, with close to 8% of their vehicle sales in 2018 were electric vehicles. Some of the other states kind of vary a lot. Arizona is probably like in the middle of that pack with close to 2% of electric vehicle sales in 2018. One thing that it's also important to note is that electric vehicles do tend to be at a higher price point, but as an initial capital purchase, but they're at a more efficient and a lower price point for operation. So exciting things there. This is the electric vehicle technology that is available and present right now. We wanted to
yes,
go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but we did get some feedback that some folks would like to know a little bit more in depth about electric vehicles, just so as you're moving into that,
Okay.
just a heads up.
Absolutely. So this is
Thank you.
this is that portion that we thought we would compare, like the traditional vehicles, the internal combustion engine that runs on fossil fuels, against the different permutations that are including full-on battery vehicles that run 100% on electricity and not on fossil fuels. So again, like the majority, like even from those charts that we showed earlier, the majority of the vehicle sales and vehicles in the U.S. are based on petroleum fuels. They have a high tailpipe emission of CO2s. Then there are, and these vehicles are pretty much, again, like I said earlier, close to like 89% of the vehicles that are being sold in the market today. Then we have the hybrid, which are they're uh, similar to the Toyota Prius, like the earlier adopter of a small battery supporting supporting an internal combustion engine. They were significant at the time when they came on the market because they improved the miles per gallon and had a lower tailpipe emission. And the county, just as a note, the county has had several hybrids in its fleet. I think, Marco, you probably have driven one of these Ford Escapes that the county has in the assessor's office and deployed in a few other departments as well. Then these are the most exciting. These are the plug-in electric cars. So this is a combination of both battery and as well as a small combustion engine. So it's a combination of the two together, where the vehicles are able to be plugged in to the grid and to an electric outlet to charge the battery. But there's a small engine that can take over once the charge for electric vehicles is depleted. And again, these two are pretty exciting. This is one of the models that the county is also considering of purchasing this upcoming year, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a few slides. This is a totally battery electric vehicle. So this is the vehicle that operates only on battery that is stored and stores electricity. It has no tailpipe emissions. However, there are some emissions based on associated with electric vehicles based on like the electricity source. And then again, this is another of the vehicles like the Chevy Bolt that we are also considering in bringing into our fleet in the next year or so. So again, to kind of summarize like the differences between like the electric and gasoline, we thought this chart is pretty it's pretty foretelling. The electric vehicles have the huge benefit of significantly reducing or doing away with the tailpipe emissions. There's a reliance on utility and like microgrid systems and solar arrays and renewable power. One of the drawbacks of the electric vehicle technology right now is the range of vehicles available on one charge and the time that it takes to charge the vehicles. But then at the same time, the technology is significantly has improved and significantly continues to improve for the benefit of like reducing those hours and reducing that information. So some very great stories there as well. One of the items that is important for the electric vehicle, like a successful deployment, is the infrastructure needed for electric vehicles. And before I jump into that, I want to see if there are any questions on kind of explaining like the different permutations and different electric vehicle types and the whole spectrum. And Marco, please feel free to jump in on as a owner of an electric vehicle in any of the that information too.
Yeah. Just main thing I would mention is that my electric vehicle, which I've had for almost 2 years now, actually has a range of about 325 miles. And so, yeah, they really are coming along in range very quickly. And it does take a while to recharge, but even at my house, I just have a 220 volt outlet that I plug it into, and it can go from like 10% charge all the way to 100% charge in like, I think 5 or 6 hours. So just plugging it in overnight, the time to recharge isn't really a problem either.
Great. No, it is. That's very true. I think that's one of the things that we've learned, that even as we put some of this information together, like the major car companies and are coming up with innovations and are coming up with new technology and are announcing new models coming in the market that extend that range of the driving range as well. It's interesting, again, going back to even the main manufacturer and the traditional ones like Ford and GM are announcing, that the Ford Mustang is going to be an all-electric Mustang coming up this year in 2021, and that's a pretty and it's like pretty foretelling about where the demand from the customers and the clients is, and that focus that it's making the car manufacturers focus on that segment of the population. So it's not just the Teslas and like the electric cars that are the main brands that are taking the charge and switching over, but you have the traditional automakers as well. So this is what Marco was talking about. There are 3 different types of electric vehicle charging stations, so they provide different times for a full charge. You have the level 1, which is pretty much like a homemade, like you can plug into your outlet at home. They do have the longest of the charge time, but it's possible to do so. There is some technology that helps inside the vehicle when you pick that to like help with how quickly the vehicles are charged, as well as you can also move to a level 2 charging station, which reduces that charge time pretty significantly, and it's another option that it's the most prevalent in even in gas stations or different businesses that offer this kind of charging ability. And then there are the DC charging stations, which are high voltage charging stations. They use like 3-phase electricity, and the charge is pretty significantly way faster. Tesla has deployed a national network of fast charging stations throughout the country as a way to, again, support that deployment and to support their product across the nation. When we look at the charging station networks available in Arizona and available in our area in Northern Arizona, we see like tremendous growth and new initiatives across our county to support charging stations. The county itself has partnered with APS in the Take Charge program, where we're going to be installing 4 electric charging stations at our King Street campus that would allow both the public as well as our upcoming county fleet vehicles to be charged at that location. So that's an exciting new development in the way that the county is partnering with private utility companies to make this available and to bring this online. So there's some tremendous opportunities that we are fully exploring, and this would be a level 2 charging station that would allow us to kind of create our own Northern Arizona microgrid system for electric vehicles to be charged for different municipalities and in different public buildings as well. So super excited about that. I want to move on now to to some of our county fleet characteristics, as well as the opportunities and the plan that we developed in order to bring these electric vehicles in our fleet. Over the last 10 years, it's unfortunate that we are heading into another recession here, but we've made significant strides in increasing the reliability and the safety of our fleet vehicles. I shared with you on those graphs that fuel efficiency has improved significantly across the different categories of fleet, and we've seen that improvement significantly in our fleet as well. One graph that is telling of that story is that these bar charts in this graph show the miles per gallon. So we were running in 2015, our fleet fuel efficiency for our fleet was a little bit over 12 miles per gallon. In 2019, it's close to 18 miles per gallon. And I want everyone to kind of keep in mind that this is not just like your sedan or their small vehicles. This is across the board. So there are some pretty intense segments of the fleet that are portrayed in here. But again, the exciting thing is that that trend line is in fuel efficiencies has improved a lot. So has the average age of our fleet has decreased, which again plays a significant role in the overall safety and reliability of our equipment as we serve our communities. When we developed this different kind of screening criteria for the electric vehicle candidates in our county fleet, we didn't want to do that in isolation and away from the departments that we serve. So we really looked into what are our business needs, what is the driving range, what is the infrastructure that would allow us to deploy these electric vehicles in areas that are supported by these charging stations, and then looking at the models in the market as well that made the most sense for us. We are primarily a rural county, and this crisis, this public health crisis, kind of highlighted that more than ever, where we have long distances to cover out of the close to over 1,000 miles of roads that we maintain. 2/3 of that is dirt road. So it's very foretelling of the kind of business needs and equipment needs that we need versus some of our more urban municipalities, like in the Valley area or elsewhere in northern Arizona. So we have about all in all, we have about 450 different pieces of equipment, like from heavy equipment that is used to grade roads and snow plows to police pickup trucks and patrol vehicles. So we have that a big range of vehicles. Some of our vehicles that we identified that would be good candidates for a potential incorporation into and venturing into electric vehicle were more based on the models that are available in the markets. Were about 23 different sedans and small vehicles that would be appropriate and would meet that business need. Again, going back to what not just the size and the range and territory that we have to cover, but also like how long our vehicles are used and for what purpose they are used is super important. And again, with the headlines coming from the car manufacturing companies about bringing new models like pickup trucks in the next 2 to 3 years, like that number of available vehicles that we can venture into is going to increase significantly and will give us the opportunity to incorporate even more vehicles in the county fleet. Looking at this overall not just the financial cost of what it takes to purchase vehicles upfront, but also looking at what are the benefits, the environmental benefits, and other considerations. We compared the two different models that of vehicles that would be equivalent, and we see a significant increase, or I should say a significant decrease and a significant improvement in the annual fuel emissions for incorporating electric vehicle like a Chevy Bolt versus a Chevy Malibu gasoline powered vehicle. And there's a significant also cost difference between the two when operating them, and we can see that even in this model that we ran, we can have a positive return on our initial capital outlay within 10 years of running the vehicle. So good opportunities. Like the announcement I want to make is that we have gotten the green light and have incorporated in our upcoming fiscal year to replace 2 motor pool vehicles with a full-on electric vehicle and an electric plug-in vehicle that would be located out of the King Street campus and would serve that the entire county. So that's an opportunity that we think would be valuable for us to learn a little bit more about the technology and the use for these vehicles, but also give us some feedback from the end users as well in like using the vehicles. So I'll leave it at that for now, and see if there are any questions, or Amanda, if you want to go into the education and resources that we're putting together for our county employees and the community at large.
Thank you, Esler. And yeah, I think before I dive into that, it'd be good to stop for a second. I wanted to say hi to Sue. Sue Brown also joined us, and wanted to see if she had anything she wanted to share on the electric charging. Hi, Miss Subi.
Hey everybody, how are you? I'm sorry I was late. I was on another meeting. I apologize, and I missed the first part of Mr. Moose's presentation, darn it. Lighting.
It was fabulous.
It was fabulous, there's no question. Just that we're moving forward with APS. We are in the process today of approving a second design path for the easements. They have to also not just deal with our easement, but also with one of our neighbors as well. And to satisfy some issues for them, they needed to change the path a little bit. And so that changes the definition of the easement area. And so we'll have to probably take that back to the board, but that's a minor thing. It should be fine. And I anticipate moving forward with that as we go into the summer. So we're very excited about that. And Esler showed a diagram of where they are. They're on the north end of the King Street parking lot, almost straight across from that cutout where the mobile on-site mammogram sometimes sits, was where that cutout is, and it's on the other side of the driveway from there. And there are 2 stations for a total of 4 charging stations. Musta, did you mention the upgrade to the stations?
I did not, but you can.
We had a decision to make. So APS would have provided a basic charging station. And Esler was actually with the facilities department when he did all the research on this, and then he moved over to promoted it to deputy director of public works and became in charge of fleet. So it was kind of fortuitous. But what he found at the time is that those organizations that had started with a basic charging station, in other words, you can just charge, and there's no ability to charge back or to monitor very well, or those kinds of things, found out that NAU and others were actually replacing their basic charging stations with a more upgraded one. So we made the decision in the beginning when we went into this with APS to go ahead and pay the small capital cost up front to actually get the more comprehensive charging stations so that we could monitor their use. If we so choose, we could actually charge the public for those charges. So really that we could have a better handle on both their use and how much electricity they're expending. So because the county will continue to pay for that electricity, so it was an important factor for us to manage that very carefully. So and a thanks to Essler because he was really instrumental in getting that started before he moved over, and then we'll use it in fleet. So I'm pretty excited about this. They're the first ones in our, we anticipate we'll expand a little bit more too. We're looking very seriously at the downtown area for the next one. So hopefully that could become a reality sometime soon. So thanks, Essler. I'm really sorry I missed the first part. I'm sure it was awesome.
Thanks, Sue.
Thank you, guys.
So to build off of what Essler was saying in terms of the education and resources, that is very much being built into this process as well. The fleet that is going to be available in this upcoming fiscal year, as Essler mentioned, is going to be part of the motor pool. And the idea behind that is to allow for these cars to be available to any staff. We want this this opportunity to be inclusive, and not just one department or one program gets the ability to use this type of new innovative equipment, but also so everybody, and so us as staff become more familiar with it, but us as human beings and community members also get a chance to become more familiar with it. And just like Essler pointed out earlier, a big thing for us in Coconino County is equity and diversity and inclusiveness. And so while this technology is not necessarily affordable or accessible for all, that is a mission of Coconino County, is as we're rolling this out in fleet to help make this a more streamlined process of providing ongoing staff training, the fleet management, having people that are like human resources. So if there's a technical issue, you could call fleet and talk to somebody over there. Those of us in county sustainability will also stay up to date in new technologies and resources and help to pass that out and provide opportunities like this lunch and learn and in-person activities too. So originally with our Earth Day, we were planning on doing an event over at, oh, thanks, Essler. Over at our King Street, and Liz Krug was gonna bring over Parks and Recs electric bike. Nina's got an electric bike. Marco's got an electric car. And we were also partnering with APS. They were going to have an event. So there's going to be ongoing opportunities for us to showcase new technologies, new things. And I see Sue's popping in. Did you have a question, Sue?
I did, Amanda, if it's an okay time for question.
Most definitely.